When you hear the name Arnold Schwarzenegger, what do you think of? The Terminator? A seven-time Mr. Olympia? The Governator? Well, his story is so much more than any one of those titles. His life isn't just a biography, it's a masterclass, a blueprint really for the incredible power of human will. We're going to look at how one person can literally shape their own destiny.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into the mindset, the architect behind it all. Then, we'll see how he forged his iron empire in bodybuilding. After that, how he conquered Hollywood, followed by his wild pivot into politics. And finally, we'll land on the lesson he's focused on teaching all of us today. All right, let's dive right into part one, the architect of will. This whole section is built around a really powerful idea that your future isn't something that just happens to you. Nope, it's something you actually design and build, brick by brick. And that really brings us to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? How on earth does one guy, starting with basically nothing, manage to climb to the absolute top of three completely different, unbelievably competitive worlds? I mean, we're talking bodybuilding, acting, and politics. It sounds impossible. But the answer, believe it or not, starts in a very, very humble place. Picture this. It's 1947, in a small village in post-war Austria. Arnold's childhood was tough. There were no luxuries. His dad was the local police chief, super strict, and their home was all about discipline. To give you an idea of what life was like, Arnold says that one of the most exciting days of his entire childhood was the day his family bought a refrigerator. Yeah, a refrigerator. Now that kind of upbringing could break you, but for Arnold, it just lit a fire in him, a relentless need to escape and build something much, much bigger.
And that fire led him straight to our second section, forging the Iron Empire. When he was just 15, he discovered bodybuilding. And you have to understand, for Arnold, this was never just a hobby. It was his ticket out. It was the very first world he looked at and decided, yeah, I'm going to own that.
And this is where we see his secret sauce, the formula he perfected before anyone even knew his name. Vision plus hard work. It's that simple. See, he wasn't just lifting weights. In his mind, he was visualizing every muscle, picturing himself on that podium holding that trophy. His focus was so intense. Get this, while he was serving in the Austrian army, he went AWOL. He deserted his post just to enter a competition. He won and then happily spent a week in military jail for it. Now that is dedication. And just look at how fast he took over. It's staggering. He lands in America in '68, barely speaking a word of English. Just 2 years later, boom, he's Mr. Olympia. Then he wins 6 more times in a row, becomes a cultural icon with the movie Pumping Iron. And then, just to show he could, he comes out of retirement in 1980 to win a 7th. It was just pure, absolute dominance. Let that number sink in for a minute. 7. At the time, winning 7 Mr. Olympia titles was completely unheard of. It cemented a legacy that, for many, is still unparalleled. But more than that, it dragged the sport of bodybuilding from some niche subculture into the global mainstream. He didn't just reach the top, he completely redefined it. So, you've totally dominated one world. Most people would probably take a break, right? Not Arnold. He set his sights on Hollywood, an industry that, frankly, thought he was a joke. Agents literally told him his name was unpronounceable, his accent was terrible, and his body was just too weird for movies. But what all those agents saw as weaknesses, director John Milius saw as a one-of-a-kind strength for his movie Conan the Barbarian. And this quote just says it all. For Milius, Arnold wasn't just planning Conan, he was Conan. That physique, the thing that was supposed to be a barrier, suddenly became his greatest asset. It launched his entire film career. And, of course, you can't talk about Arnold's movie career without talking about the epic rivalry with Sylvester Stallone. Throughout the 80s and 90s, these two were in an all-out war for action hero king. If Stallone used a big knife in Rambo, Arnold used a bigger one in Predator. It was this incredible battle of muscles, one-liners, and box office numbers that defined an entire era of film. But here's the thing. Arnold was way smarter than just being a tough guy. He made a brilliant, strategic pivot to comedy. Movies like Twins and Kindergarten Cop, it was a genius move. It showed this whole other side of him, this charisma and warmth. It proved that audiences loved him for more than just his strength. They loved him. Okay, so he's conquered bodybuilding, he's conquered Hollywood. What could possibly be next? How about running the state of California? This brings us to his most audacious move yet, The Governator's Blueprint. When he announced his run in 2003, the entire political world laughed. They saw it as a publicity stunt, and once again, they completely underestimated his will to win.
He was incredibly clever about how he positioned himself. He called himself a Kennedy Republican. Thanks to his marriage into the Kennedy family, he could run as a centrist, an outsider who wasn't tied down by party politics. And for the crazy recall election in California that year, it was the perfect brand. It allowed him to appeal to pretty much everyone.
And his time in office was anything but a joke. He was all about pragmatic solutions. He passed the huge Global Warming Solutions Act, which put California at the very front of climate policy. He invested billions in infrastructure. He even took on the political system itself by fighting partisan gerrymandering. He was a governor who governed based on science and what worked, not just party ideology.
And just so we're clear, gerrymandering is basically when politicians draw these crazy-looking voting maps to make sure their party always wins. It's rigging the game. The fact that Arnold fought so hard against it tells you something really important. He wasn't just interested in being in power. He wanted to reform the system to make it fairer for everybody.
And that brings us to his final act, the one he's in right now. And it comes with his most important lesson: be useful. After he left office, Arnold didn't just retire. He started a whole new chapter, one focused entirely on giving back and sharing the wisdom he's picked up along the way.
In this new era, he's become this beloved figure, kind of like the grandfather of the internet. He uses his massive social media platform, not for vanity, but to promote health, fitness, positivity, and having civil conversations about politics. He's connecting with a whole new generation in this really direct, really personal way.
He even wrote a book, Be Useful, where he boils his whole philosophy down to these 7 tools for life. And you can see his own journey in every single one. Have a clear vision. That's him picturing himself as Mr. Olympia. Never think small. That's Hollywood and the governorship. Work your ass off. I mean, obviously. Then you have sell, sell, sell. Shut your mouth, open your ears, and break your mirrors to focus on others. And finally, never give up. It's his life's blueprint offered up as a toolkit for the rest of us.
And this is really the ultimate takeaway. After conquering 3 worlds, after all the fame and success, his final message is one of service. It's not about being the strongest or the richest or the most famous. It's about contributing something. So the question he kind of leaves us with is a simple one. What are you building and who is it for?